So Steve Garcia just went out there and made it look so easy, man, against David Onama at UFC Vegas 110. So in this video, I will be recapping the entire card. And I keep saying it about these Apex cards, man, right? We come into fight week and it's like, we basically got a glorified featured prelim that would be on a pay-per-view event, probably as a featured prelim, or maybe a main card fight. Ends up being the main event of these Apex cards. And so there's not a lot of, buzz. There's not a ton of excitement. These cards end up delivering almost every single time, man. Like, we always get some crazy stuff going on in the Apex, man. We get some crazy finishes, some crazy fights, but then we often get some controversy, man. We get a little bit of drama, especially on these Apex cards. That is exactly what we had last night. In the co-main between Waldo and Ante Delija, the teammate of Thomas Paul Aspinall. What a timeline we were on, man, with the eye poke, and then Waldo comes back and KOs him. Then we had some very suspicious activity in that Isaac Dulgarian fight, man. So we're going to discuss all of that in this video. We got a lot to discuss. I'm going to try to rip through this. We're going to start with the main event, then work our way down to the very first fight of the night, and I'm going to shit on Themba Gorimbo in this video, so stick around if you want to hear that as well. But let's get rocking and rolling, man. Steve Garcia versus David Onama. This was one of the most non-competitive UFC fights I think I've ever seen. And honestly, one of the most, as far as main events, for dang sure. I mean, this was not even close whatsoever, man. David Onama looked like a deer in headlights in this fight. He looked like he was in MSG, sold out arena, walls were shaking, right? You would have thought he was in a world title fight, man. This guy literally was feeling the moment or something. I don't know what the hell was going on with David Onama. He got absolutely punked and destroyed by Steve Garcia. Let's not dance around this, man. David Onama is a guy that I was very high on, right? I picked Steve Garcia to win this fight. We actually went, I think, 10 out of 13 in terms of predictions. We did good on this card, man. I picked Steve Garcia to win this fight by KO within 2 rounds, and for the exact reason we saw. Look, David Onama's a tactician, right? If he was able to kind of, fight this super tactical and smart game plan, the sticking and moving, really dive into the X's and O's, right, for David Onama, then maybe he could pull this one off. What the hell was his corner doing, man? What was their game plan? They're like, yeah, great job, David, woohoo, right? Yusuf Salal was in his corner. Like, what were they telling this guy to do? Right, I saw him, we know David Onama is very smooth, right? Switches stances, right? And he switched to southpaw, and I'm like, Steve's incredibly bladed. Maybe he's going to start attacking. He's like, no, he was just staring at him. It was very, very odd, man. David Onama looked like a deer in headlights, and he got ran over by Steve Garcia. Steve Garcia is for real, man. He's absolutely for real. I mean, David Onama landed, 2 strikes? As long as this is accurate on the side. I mean, it seems accurate because Steve Garcia absolutely dictated the pace of the fight, moved forward, was moving his head, slipping his head off the center line, was throwing those big, powerful shots. Steve Garcia is a scary guy in this weight class, man. He's a very scary guy in this weight class. I'd like to see him fight Josh Emmett next. I know he called out Max Holloway. I think he said in the post-fight, press conference that he would like to fight Josh Emmett. I like that fight for him next, man. Let's give him a nice stepping stone moving forward in this weight class because this guy's super dangerous, man. Training down at Jackson Wink. Very, very, solid on the feet. And the thing with Garcia is he's got a very technical but yet chaotic style, right? He kind of gets a little bit wild, a little bit reckless at times, but then he starts to reel it back in. And once he gets his timing and once he starts to land, this guy's just like a shark that smells blood in the water, man. And then he goes after you and puts you out of there. And that's exactly what he's done, man. Out of his last, what has it been, 6 fights or 7 fights? 6 of them have been KOs outside of the Cater fight. I mean, absolutely crazy. And he was dropping Calvin Cater around, man. Nobody really does that to Calvin Cater. I know, Calvin's definitely a shell of himself at this point, but it was still impressive. The meme machine is for real, man. This guy is super dangerous. He's got crazy power. Right, that Kyle Nelson win after seeing what he just did to Matt Frivola, I feel like that's aged really well. I mean, Steve Garcia is dangerous, man. Very, very dangerous. And it's rare that you see these explosive southpaws like that, man, especially down in the lighter weight classes. He's got a big frame for the featherweight division, man. He's got crazy power in his hands. Very, very confident. Got some nice kicks as well. Almost landed a nasty head kick once he had Onama rocked as well. I mean, David Onama, man, he looked like a deer in headlights. I don't know what his game plan was. I guess his game plan was to, not fight. I don't know what he was doing. He wasn't even trying to fight back. He literally was almost like a moving heavy bag, dude. It was very, very odd to see that from David Onama because I was very high on David Onama as well. I was so excited for this fight because I'm like, we got 2 guys here, right? Garcia's in the rankings. Onama's a guy that feels like he could be in the back end of the rankings. Very, very skilled, fun to watch. He's put on some very good performances coming off of that win against Giga, which I know it wasn't maybe the most exciting, but it was a very tactical performance against a dangerous striker. David Onama seemed to be the full package skill set wise. I still think he is, but man, he just froze in front of Steve Garcia, man. And I feel like a lot of that was he got hit with that Steve Garcia power, and it's just different. We're seeing that. So Steve Garcia is for real, man. We all knew that coming into this fight. It's why I picked him by KO. His power, his range, his rhythm. I mean, this guy's dangerous, man. He's an exciting fighter, right? He's one of those guys that's willing to go out there and put himself in the line of fire to go out there and try to get the KO. And how can you not like watching the guy fight, man? So I like the call out of Josh Emmett, right? He's not getting a Max Holloway fight. We all know that. But shoot your shot, man, right? Shoot your shot. I want to see Steve Garcia versus Josh Emmett. Big power hitter in Emmett. Steve Garcia, right? He's got so many KOs over his past, 7 fights, whatever I was just saying. Put him in there against Josh Emmett. If he could go out there and KO Josh Emmett, I mean, that would be wildly impressive. I know Emmett's not necessarily the same guy, just got submitted in round 1 by Yusuf Zalal, but to KO Emmett, especially, with the run that Garcia's on, I feel like that would be a nice step up in competition for him. And David Onama, he was just outgunned in this fight or whatever, man. It was just odd to see David Onama so hesitant, so unwilling to put himself in harm's way, because we've seen him, get into the line of fire. We've seen him get hurt. We've seen him be able to recover and come back into fights, but you can't bank on that coming into this fight, which is why I picked Steve to win this fight, man, because David Onama's been rocked before, and if you're getting hit clean by Steve Garcia, I don't know, man. I feel like he got a taste of that power and just kind of shut down or something. Very, very odd to see that from David Onama. Great performance by Steve Garcia. Pretty much exactly what I was anticipating, just not as one-sided as it was. Steve Garcia, he is for real in the featherweight division, man. Guy's a problem. Waldo Cortes-Acosta versus Ante Delija. So Ante Delija is talking about and however many fights he's had. He's never eye poked somebody, whatever he was saying coming into the fight. And he comes out here, eye pokes Waldo, then, follows up with some shots. The referee steps in. Ante Delija thinks he wins. He's celebrating. Him and his team are going crazy. So obviously the adrenaline's going to factor into that. You think you won. They sit Waldo down on the stool. They say, oh, it's an eye poke, so we're going to continue. We're going to give Waldo some time to see if he's able to step back in there and fight. And Waldo, being the savage that he is, goes, listen, man, I can continue. And he goes out there and after the eye poke, right, Ante Delija, you got to keep in mind the adrenaline dump as well. Thinks he's got the W. Now he doesn't. Now he's got to go out. Now he's got to go back out there, reel in the emotions again, moves forward, and literally seconds after the fight resumes, Waldo steps in with a 1-2, knocks him out with a right hand, and then drops down and is covering up the eyes, screaming in agony. You couldn't have scripted it, man. Literally a week ago at UFC 321, Ante Delija's teammate Tom Aspinall, we get the eye poke stuff with Surrogan, right? And again, every eye poke is different, right? That's kind of the reality. But at the end of the day, this eye poke looked pretty bad, right? Fingers went straight out, boom, into the eye of Waldo. I'm like, here we go again, the eye poke stuff again. The UFC's really got to do something about this, man. They got to do something about this because it's getting out of hand. And then Waldo says, I'm going to continue. And I'm like, dude, if he can get a KO off of this, we just know that people are going to be ripping on Tom Aspinall for that, especially because normally when guys get eye poked, they usually end up losing, right? You get eye poked, you continue, you're like, yeah, no, I'm good. And then a lot of times we see people end up getting KO'd. Waldo Cortes-Acosta was the exception last night, man. Gets eye poked, comes back, and starches Ante Delija, man. That was so impressive. So crazy to do that. I just thought it was nuts how he's like, he's got the rag on, right? And we had this weirdness where I'm like, is the fight going to get stopped? And then he goes out there and starches Ante Delija basically in the very first exchange, then drops down with his hand over his eye, which I was like, well, you really weren't doing that when you were fighting or going, and then after you dropped, I don't know if he was trolling or what he was doing, but that eye poke did look pretty bad, man. The eye poke did look bad. Again, every eye poke is different, but I know that Waldo just gained a fan base, man, because of all the stuff that's been going on with Tom Aspinall. That was crazy, man, to see that. To get eye poked like that and then continue, that was pretty savage, man. And again, risky because we see a lot of the times when, fighters, they're like, man, no, I'm good. And really, are they good or are they not? And then they come out there and they end up getting finished. And Waldo, I feel like, was one of the exceptions, man. Goes out there, puts a 1-2 on Delija and knocks his ass out, man. That was wildly impressive from Waldo Cortes-Acosta. And then he called out Aspinall, right? Because of the whole thing that happened last week. And, so everyone's having fun with that online at the end of the day. But at the end of the day, eye pokes are different, man. Every eye poke is different. The fighters know just how bad, it is. Like I said, every eye poke is different. It's pretty savage that Waldo carried on, man, because that did look pretty bad. The fingers were straight out, man. They were straight out. The Aspinall one, right? Gon basically clawed him like Freddy Krueger. So at the end of the day, to continue and go out there and get a KO, and I think that he said he wants to fight Curtis Blades, that's a very realistic opponent next for sure. Because Blades, I think, is coming off of the Kuniev win. I'd like to see that fight because we've seen that Waldo's takedown defense has been really good. If there's a guy that can definitely test that, it would be Blades. I think that's actually a very favorable matchup for Waldo Cortes-Acosta to get that one done, man. He's fast, moves well for a heavyweight, goes out there, gets a KO over a guy like Ante Delija. I mean, Delija just knocked out Marcin Tybura, right? A lot of people were starting to kind of all aboard the Ante Delija hype train, and then Waldo goes out there and shuts that down. After getting eye poked, I'm sure he's getting a ton of fans after that, continuing on after the foul. Very impressive stuff from Waldo. But again, like whenever you do that and you think that you won in the adrenaline dump, like we saw that with Jake Matthews versus Neil Magny, again, a different kind of situation. I don't know, man. Hopefully we could get this eye poke stuff under control because guys getting their eyes gouged and poked, man, that is just horrible to keep seeing this, man. But a crazy, amazing win from Waldo Cortes to bounce back after the foul and then go out there and get a KO, man. That was absolutely savage. Jeremiah Wells versus Themba Gorimbo. Jeremiah Wells, he's solid, man. He's solid. But I picked Themba to win this fight because I was like, look, he's the more technical fighter. Jeremiah Wells is chaotic. He's all over the place. And look, he's got a better ground game. I knew that coming into this fight. But I feel like on the feet, Themba Gorimbo was doing really well in this fight. He was outlanding Jeremiah Wells. And the amazing fight IQ that Themba brought to the table, he said, you know what? Even though I'm landing on the feet and I'm getting the better of the exchanges and I'm actually landing the more significant shots and I'm actually kind of getting through and kind of hurting Jeremiah a little bit, nah, I don't want to do that. I want to grapple with a guy that's better than me on the floor. I mean, you just cannot make it up, man. It was one of the dumbest things I've ever seen from a fighter. What was Themba Gorimbo thinking? What was his corner's advice? This was one of the dumbest performances I've seen from a fighter. And shout out to Jeremiah Wells for getting it done, right? Because I've never thought that Themba Gorimbo's that great of a fighter. I just figured Jeremiah Wells is a little bit older. He's sloppy on the feet, throws these big winging punches where I'm like, Gorimbo throws good technical shots. Right, I know he's not known for being a KO artist, but he's got some sting on his shots. He was landing. He was landing very, very well. And I get trying to grapple early, right? Try to, inflate the arms of Jeremiah, fill him up with some blood, right? Slow him down, take away some of that explosiveness. But to continue to go back to the ground with a guy who's better than you makes absolutely no sense, man. It makes no sense. This has got to be one of the dumbest things I've seen from a fighter in terms of a game plan. I don't know what the game plan was. It was dumb. That's what I know, is it was very, very dumb. Outstriking the guy with good, clean, technical shots on the feet. I mean, all you got to do is keep your hands up, move, and snipe down the middle because Jeremiah throws everything looping and windmill-esque, man. Just keep sniping him down the middle like you were doing, Gorimbo. Why in the world would you try to grapple with this guy? It was dumb. Very, very dumb game plan. Gorimbo deserved to lose this fight, man. I'm happy he lost in a way. I mean, the guy's an interesting individual, but when you go out there and you fight that dumb, you deserve to lose, in my opinion, man. You just do. And shout out to Jeremiah Wells for capitalizing. He was clearly the better grappler. I feel like a lot of us knew that coming in. So why are you trying to out-grapple him on the floor if you're Gorimbo? And you're having success continuously on the feet. Didn't make any sense, man. Gorimbo, it was very clear in this fight, his best path to victory was going to be knocking out Jeremiah Wells or just sticking and moving and outlanding him on the feet. I don't get it from Gorimbo at all. Very low fight IQ performance. Shout out to Jeremiah Wells for getting it done against Gorimbo, man. I don't get Gorimbo whatsoever with that. That was dumb. Isaac Dulgarian versus Yadier Valle. When we talk about suspicious activity, this was very interesting, right? I'm sure a lot of you know when I'm referencing at this point, right? The whole situation with the line, going wild, shortly before the fight. And, Dulgarian was a pretty sizable favorite. And then that cut down. And, a bunch of people, we're throwing on Yair to get it done in round one. And, so normally when that happens, there's some interesting stuff going on, right? Maybe Isaac is compromised coming into the fight. He's banged up. That gets leaked. I don't know. Here's what I do know. Isaac Dulgarian was looked at as a pretty solid grappler, man. That's why he was a sizable favorite here is Yadier Valle. By the way, Yadier is someone that I got my eye on now. This guy's big. He's strong for the weight class. Right? I know he's a very good grappler, but Isaac Dulgarian has shown that he's very good on the ground. And for a guy to show that he's pretty intelligent on the ground, has good ground and pound, has good ground skills, to look like an absolute amateur who's completely clueless on the ground all of a sudden is very odd to me. Very odd. And I know that Valle is very, very good on the ground, so I don't want to take anything away from him in that aspect because he completely dominated. He looked in great condition. He's very, very, very good. But how in the world does Isaac Dulgarian dive into a takedown, sit in a position where his knees are on the floor. He's like leaning forward way too much, basically exposing his neck against a guy that has good submissions in Yadier Valle. That's odd. That's dumb. And then when you get your back taken, you get flattened out, you're turning over, and you get your back taken, and it's not like, oh, well, there's 5 seconds left in the round, and so I'm not going to get submitted. So I'm just going to throw a few shots here just to score a couple punches, because we all know none of those shots are going to be significant. And you heard Daniel Cormier on the broadcast. He's like, what is this guy doing? He's not even fighting the hands, or he's kind of fighting the hands, and he's stopping, then he's punching. Anyone that knows anything about grappling mixed martial arts, especially, obviously when the punches are added in, you have to fight the hands. Whenever someone is on your back, you don't sit there and punch. You're not knocking somebody out that way, right? So the idea is to stay safe from the rear naked choke threat. Why in the world are you throwing punches, right? To me, it almost seemed like you were like, please. Very odd performance from Isaac Dulgarian. To see a guy go from being a solid grappler who's displayed some very good IQ on the floor to going out there and looking like a complete amateur on the ground. Maybe Del Valle is just that damn good. But to see all that funkiness happen with the line before the fight, and then to go out there and put yourself in very vulnerable positions, and then to show a huge lack of understanding on the ground all of the sudden, right? It's not like we've seen these alarming, questionable moves and maneuvers on the ground from Dulgarian before. We really haven't seen that. And then to go out there and have that happen, and then in round one, like after all the stuff that was going on with the line, it's very odd, man. Very suspicious. Very, very suspicious. And if I'm not mistaken, doesn't he, train at the gym or train with James Krause and all that? We know about all that stuff that went on there. Very, very suspicious, man. Unbelievably suspicious. To see a guy go out there and fight like that. And again, maybe Del Valle is just that damn good, right? And I do think he is very, very good. But to make it look that easy against a guy who is known for being really good on the ground, I don't know, man. Very, 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 very suspicious to me. That's all I'm going to say. So at the end of the day, how you go from looking like you know how to grapple on the ground to looking like a complete amateur making white belt mistakes like that, odd, man. Odd, man. I don't know what belt Isaac Dulgarian is, all right? I don't know if he even trains in the gi. I don't know about any of that. But what I do know is what we've seen from him is a good understanding on the ground. And even hear Daniel Cormier on the broadcast going, what is he doing? Fighting the hands occasionally, then throwing some punches, and then, the choke gets in deep, couple punches, choke in deep, and then, I don't know, man, made absolutely no sense. But again, good performance from Yadier Valle. Nothing he did wrong, went out there, did what he had to do. Guy's a beast, man. Big and strong for the weight class, someone to keep our eye on for sure, and he's got a good submission game as well. Just unbelievably suspicious fight, man. I honestly, out of all the years that I've been watching fighting, this to me was one of the most suspicious things that I have seen, honestly. Charles Radke, Daniel Frunza. I picked Charles Radke to get this one done by a KO, but he ends up getting a submission. Look, I was surprised by this, actually. I thought that this was going to be one of those fights where, by the way, doesn't Charles Radke kind of look like Justin Gaethje? I kind of noticed that last night, but Charles Radke kind of pulled out the old crafty, savvy performance, right? Goes out there, mixes in the takedowns, doesn't get into, a crazy war on the feet with Frunza, which I feel like is what a lot of people were expecting for this fight, including myself. And it was none of that. It was Charles Radke absolutely dominating Daniel Frunza up until the submission. He was timing his takedowns well, landed a couple shots on the feet, but it was all about the ground skills of Radke in this fight. I mean, he was getting these takedowns and securing them, and Frunza was a fish out of water on the floor, man. He was unable to get out of any of the positions that Radke was putting him in. And then Charles was just posturing up and landing some solid ground and pound shots, man. Was beating him up with some elbows, landing some good hammer fists as well. I mean, this was a one-sided beatdown, right? I know people were kind of high on Frunza because he got that nice win on the Contender Series. Then he goes out there against Rhys McKee, and it's like, okay, maybe UFC jitters. That's why he lost the fight. But, I mean, he got destroyed in this fight, man. He got absolutely destroyed. And I felt like on the feet, maybe Radke knew that. He's like, this guy's durable, right? He's not going to, and Frunza, to be fair, I mean, there were plenty of times that I'm like, maybe this fight's going to get stopped, and this guy continues to fight out of submissions, right? He was put into a submission earlier on. I think it was in round 2. He fought through it, made it out of there, and I feel like Radke was like, I got to neutralize this guy on the ground. I don't want to get into a crazy war to where maybe I fatigue, and then this guy kind of hits that zombie mode, comes back from the dead, because remember, that was a doctor's stoppage in the Rhys McKee fight, and Rhys was looking tired. Right, so if that fight goes on, maybe Frunza comes back and gets it done, and that's kind of what he's done in his career, right? He's known for kind of taking a little bit of a beating and then working his way back into the fight. Maybe that's what would have happened. Charles Radke said, I'm not taking any risks, man. And clearly they saw much more of a hole on the ground with Daniel's game than I even thought coming into this fight. I feel like a lot of us were surprised by this because I know Charles Radke's got solid wrestling, but I didn't think it was leaps and bounds ahead of Daniel Frunze like that. I mean, crazy great performance from Charles Radke to go out there instead of being the guy that's, Mr. Chaos, so to speak, goes out there and gets into these crazy fights. For him to go out there and fight smart like that, take the fight to the floor where he clearly knew that he had a significant advantage, and then to beat him up on the ground like that and get a submission, great performance by Charles Radke, man. And again, the Radke losses in his career, Cortes and Mike Malott. So two solid guys in the welterweight division. And outside of that, Charles Radke's beaten up on these other guys, man. So I felt confident picking him to win this fight. I was just very surprised at his approach, man, and it ended up being a great game plan by Charles Radke. Amazing performance. Allan Nascimento versus Cody Durden. I picked Allan Nascimento to win this fight by a submission, I believe. I definitely picked him to win. I think I said by a submission, and this is exactly what happens when you fight these guys that are training training at the shoot-to-box gym with Charles Oliveira. You cannot get hurt by these guys, man. You can't get hurt by them, right? Cody Durden comes out. Now, he took the fight on short notice, so props to Durden for stepping in here, right? That's why it was at a catch weight. Cody Durden was looking sharp, man, right? His boxing looked good in the first round, came out, was, hitting the jab from any angle, right? Sticking and moving. The jab was firing on all cylinders, right hand of the body, right hand upstairs. Cody Durden was looking money, man. He absolutely was. But I'm like, is he going to be able to keep this up for the course of 15 minutes? And he was, right? Even in round two, I mean, Allan Nascimento's chin was coming in the air. His defense looked horrible, right? And we see a lot of those shoot-to-box guys, that Muay Thai style, right? They got the hands up and they kind of march forward, to where Nascimento was kind of had his hands up like that, but he doesn't fight like that, man, right? We saw the front kicks, the leg kicks. We did see that, but there was no pressure. Cody Durden was pressuring the hell out of him. But again, I felt like maybe Allan Nascimento was just waiting for Durden to fall on his own sword. He was attacking the lead leg. That definitely, I think, was, working at the base of Durden, kind of taking away some of that movement. And then the minute Nascimento stung him, I'm like, this is a wrap, man. You can't get hurt by Allan Nascimento. He's one of those guys that's got dangerous submission skills, right? That's really where he excels, is when the fight hits the floor. His jiu-jitsu's really, really high level. That's a worst nightmare for Cody Durden in this fight, man. To get rocked by Nascimento, because then when Allan jumps on a submission, it's over, man. And that's exactly what we saw in this fight. And it's exactly like when you watch Charles fight. I'm not saying he's Charles Oliveira, but it's the same kind of effect. You get hurt, you're in trouble, because these guys are just going to snatch up a submission, and then you're cooked. So Allan Nascimento rattling off some nice wins, man. I know that this was short notice for Cody Durden, but Cody Durden's a solid guy in this weight class. Right, and then Nascimento going out there and beating Jafel Filho, I mean, that's a very solid win. We're seeing how good Filho is. So that's aged very well as well. So Nascimento, got to keep your eye on, man. Really good on the floor. Striking seems like it's coming along. Got to work on the defense. So that chin is on a platter, man, just waiting to be tagged. I thought Durden was going to knock him out. Seeing how bad Nascimento was defensively in round one, I was like, this is not good, man. I feel like Cody's going to land a shot. That never happened. The leg kicks of Nascimento added up. Good front kicks to the body. Was very tactical. The minute he stung him and hopped on a limb, I'm like, this thing's over, man. So great performance by Allan Nascimento. Got to work on the defense, though. Billy Elekana versus Kevin Christian. What a crazy KO this was, man. And Billy Elekana, I've been saying, man, he's a guy to really keep your eye on, right? The Ibo Aslan performance, I get that, it was lackluster. It wasn't super entertaining. But the thing about Billy Elekana is he's so technical, man, right? And I feel like early on he kind of had the wrong approach, right? Kevin Christian's this big, tall, what is he, 6'7", crazy reach. So you got to get to the inside of that reach, right? And trying to sit on the outside and play the kicking range game, which is usually how Elekana likes to play it, that's not going to work against a guy who's way taller and longer than you. So eventually Elekana was taking too many kicks, right? He checked a few, right? Got that big hematoma on the shin. Then he's like, all right, I got to switch stances, go southpaw. I got to get to the inside, and I got to let my hands go. It's exactly what he did. Tagged Kevin Christian on the chin, dropped him, was beating him up on the ground, got to, the rear naked choke, had him flattened out. Kevin Christian's tapping. Chris Tagnone's laying down looking, and Christian's tapping on the other side. Didn't see it, so he goes out completely cold. Amazing performance from Billy Elekana, man. He was the favorite coming into this. I think I said by KO. I can't remember. I definitely picked Elekana to get it done. Great performance by Billy Elekana, man. He's got some power in his hands. We see that. He's more of those, one of those more technical guys that likes to sit on the outside, pick and poke, find his opportunities, right? We saw on short notice his debut, he fought Bogdan Guskov, right? Which was, at 205. I mean, that was very impressive, because he'd had a lot of success in round one and then kind of faded, and Guskov was able to get him out of there with a sub. But overall, Elekana is very technical, man. I just wasn't impressed with Kevin Christian and any of his regional tape and what we saw in the Contender Series. I mean, he took advantage of a gassed opponent in a 15-minute fight and was able to sub him off of his back. But Kevin Christian, I mean, he's rangy, right? So, of course, he's going to be able to land kicks and stuff like that, but I just don't think he's that good, man. Billy Elekana, I think he's solid, man. This is a guy to keep our eye on in this weight class. Very technical, very smooth, and now he goes out there and gets a KO. Very impressive stuff by Billy Elekana. Timmy Cuamba, Chang Ho Lee. Out of the entire card, when I talk about a performance that really wowed me and I kind of took more from their performance than anybody else, it just might have been Timmy Cuamba, man. I picked Timmy Cuamba to win this fight. And the reason that I picked him to win this fight was because I figured that Chang Ho Lee would have an edge on the ground, right? And we obviously saw that in round one, right? Was able to get to the back of Timmy Cuamba. They were in a standing position, and, Chang Ho Lee's got his legs locked, and, he's, on the body triangle. But at some point, I mean, yeah, that's going to wear on Timmy Cuamba because he's got to carry your weight around, but he was leaning up against the fence to kind of help with it a little bit. I mean, still, it's going to be very taxing for Cuamba, but it's also going to be very taxing for holy shit as well, right? Because you're squeezing your legs, you're trying to keep yourself in that position, and I'm like, I feel like that's going to be a problem for him. So Chang Ho Lee dominates round one, and Timmy Cuamba comes out in round 2 and 3, man, and looked like just a different fighter. He was stopping the takedowns, reversing the positions, and he was even out-grappling Chang Ho Lee, man, because to me on the feet, it wasn't even close. I thought Timmy Cuamba was much better than Chang on the feet. I didn't think it was remotely close in that aspect, but again, when you have the element of the takedowns and you do have a good ground game like Lee, it's going to cause for some problems. But to see Timmy Cuamba out there scrambling like he was, out there landing those shots on the feet. Now, he was waiting for Lee to get a little bit too close to where I would have liked to seen him be a little bit more aggressive. It was almost like he was accepting backing up to the fence against Lee. Maybe part of that was the game plan, so that way he could use the fence, to help him defend some of the takedowns and work back to his feet. But either way, man, I mean, after a rough round one, amazing round 2 and 3 by Timmy Cuamba. Showed that dog in him, man. He's super tough. He's dangerous on the feet as well. And to go out there and get a win over a hyped up guy in Chang Ho Lee, I was wildly impressed from Timmy Cuamba, man. To me, this was the most statement-like, I shouldn't even say statement-like, but I'm trying to think of the word. Like, out of all the performances on the card, this one impressed me the most, man. Just given what we knew from Lee and his ground game, right? And the way that people were looking at him, calling him like the next Khabib and all this wild stuff. And to see Timmy Cuamba go out there and show the evolution in his ground game and how scrambly he is. We already know he's got crispy hands on the feet. I was wildly impressed with Timmy Cuamba, man. This, to me, this impressed me the most out of anything on this card. This was a great performance by Timmy Cuamba to go out there and start out-grappling Lee in rounds 2 and 3. Wildly impressive, man. Great performance by Timmy Cuamba. Donte Johnson versus Cedric Dumas. So I picked Donte Johnson to win by knockout in round 1, so that didn't happen. But Cedric Dumas kind of had a smart approach, right? And Cedric Dumas, interesting individual, right? And not a guy that's really known for his fight IQ or anything. Actually fought a smart first round. He's like, I'm going to be chaotic. I'm going to throw some weird stuff out there, and I'm going to grapple immediately and make Donte Johnson work. I'm going to try to drag him out of this first round and get into at least a round 2 to see if we can wear on that gas tank, see if we can take advantage of the new guy in the UFC who fought at heavyweight on the Contender Series. How's he going to do in the middleweight division here? We clearly got to see Donte Johnson is for real, man. Like, to go out there and not get the finish in round 1, right? And he ended up out-grappling Cedric Dumas, which I thought was very impressive because as much as people want to rip on Dumas, and I get that he's an interesting character, but at the end of the day, like, he's got the UFC experience, right? He's put on, at times, he's shown some flashes, and for Donte Johnson to go out there and start out-grappling him, right? I think he was a football player. You could see it, man. He's super athletic, very explosive, very powerful. I feel like this is the type of win that is actually going to help Johnson in the long run, man, because you're not always going to be able to get everyone out of there in round number 1. So to have to go to a round 2, have to grapple a little bit instead of just going out there slinging big shots and knocking people out, I feel like this is going to bode well for Donte in the long run. Getting some cage time, getting into the grappling exchanges. He didn't show any signs of fatigue, man. I was wildly impressed. His cardio held up. He actually, because I'm like, Dumas doesn't have good cardio, right? I don't think he takes the fight game that serious. This guy's, an interesting character, like I've said. So, like I've always said, you just can't trust Cedric Dumas, man. You can't trust him. Goes in there, Donte Johnson domination, man. And it was looking hairy because Dumas was grappling, which I thought was actually smart. Try to take some of the, the explosiveness of Donte away, try to drag him out. But either way, man, good performance by Donte Johnson to go out there and get a submission. Very, very impressive stuff, man. It looked like he just broke Cedrique and their great performance by Donte Johnson in the debut. Ketlin Vieira versus Norma Dumont. I picked Norma Dumont to win this fight, and I thought she won the fight. People were out here saying that this was a robbery, dude. This is such a robbery. Ketlin Vieira won the fight. Norma Dumont clearly won this fight 29-28. And if you don't think that she won 29-28, you need to go look at the judging criteria. It is simple as that, man. Norma Dumont clearly won this fight. Round 1 clearly went to Ketlin Vieira. She was able to land some decent shots on the feet. She was able to take Norma down, control her for a large portion of the round, then got to the arm triangle and damn near could have finished the fight there. So obviously Vieira won round 1. Round 2, Norma Dumont outstrikes her. Ketlin Vieira takes her down with a little bit of time left in the round and basically hugs her on the floor and does absolutely nothing. Landed no strikes on the floor, threatened with no submissions whatsoever. That round goes to Norma Dumont. Round 3, Norma Dumont outstrikes her on the feet. And then you even heard the commentary like, oh, Norma Dumont's going to have to get a finish in order to win the fight, man. She's probably down 2 rounds. I'm sitting there going, this is 1-1 heading into round 3. All Norma Dumont has to do is keep this thing on the feet, keep sticking and moving and landing the shots, and she's going to win the fight. So the fact that he was even a split decision, I think, is even crazy. It was clearly 29-28 Norma Dumont. Just because, and I know Daniel Cormier, he's a wrestler at heart, all that kind of stuff. He is so biased to when someone gets a takedown. Just because you get the takedown doesn't mean that, oh, there's a minute left, you got to take it down, you're flat on your back, you lost the round. No, it doesn't work like that. What did you do with the takedown? Did you advance any positions? Did you threaten any submissions? Did you land even a single ground and pound strike? The answer, no. How is that going to outweigh you getting outstruck on the feet for the rest of the round up until that point? Norma Dumont clearly won this fight. Good win for Norma Dumont, right? We got to see her ground game tested a little bit. She's got things to work on, right? I know Ketlin Vieira's underrated on the ground. She's big. She's strong for the weight class, but Norma Dumont's got to improve the takedown defense. There was almost no resistance, especially in round 1 and 2, right? Round 3 was better, but round 1 and 2, it was a nightmare, man, on the floor. I mean, she was getting taken down with ease. I'm surprised Ketlin Vieira didn't try to entertain the grappling even sooner in some of those rounds, especially in round 2, because if she did, she probably would have taken that round, honestly. But to see her go out there, bank on basically one takedown around, kind of play it out safe and kind of stand on the feet for a little bit, then get to the takedown later in the round. I thought it was a dumb idea by Ketlin Vieira. She should have pushed the grappling even more, and she probably could have won the fight. But Norma outstruck her, did way more on the feet and on the ground. Vieira did a lot in round 1, but then 2 and on, she didn't do anything on the floor whatsoever. To me, this was a clear 29-28 for Cheeks Ahoy and Norma Dumont. Alice Ardelean versus Montserrat Conejo Ruiz. I expected Alice to win this fight. I honestly thought that she would get a stoppage in round 3, and I felt like we were heading in that direction, right? I figured that we were going to see some competitiveness early on, but look, Ardelean was just ahead, man. Her striking's faster. She's rangier. She was just peppering up Montserrat the entire fight. Fair play to Ruiz. She's tough. Was in there swinging some big shots, but they were just super telegraphed. Winging big old ooga booga left hands going, "Rrr." There was no technique behind them. Alice was getting out of the way, just touching her with the jab, the right hand. Easy victory for Alice Ardelean. She should have won this fight. This was a layup type of fight for Alice, man. She was expected to win this fight. She went out there. She separated herself by going out there and just completely outscoring Ruiz. I would have liked to have seen a finish in this fight. But I know Ruiz is durable, but I feel like this was a fight that we definitely could have seen, given that Alice snowballs as the fight goes. I thought she was going to be able to get a stoppage later in the fight, but it was a completely one-sided win for Alice. Good performance. Phil Rowe versus Seok-Young Ko. When we talk about prospects to keep your eye on in the UFC right now, I feel like Ko is one of those guys, man. To go out there, and I expected him to go out there and win this fight by a decision. He completely dominated Phil Rowe, man. He completely dominated Rowe. This wasn't even close, man. And that's what I said about Phil Rowe, right? He's this big, long, rangy guy, and he's kind of known for, like we saw in the Angelusa fight, where he can be losing, be getting dominated on the floor, and right, he kind of hits this second wind, you get tired, gets back to the feet, and just kind of peppers you and is able to stop, get a stoppage. But Ko's too good for that, man. This guy, he's for real, man. To go out there and dominate Oban Elliott, fathead, like he did, right? And to go out here and dominate Phil Rowe, like Phil Rowe, he's not a great fighter, but he's not a scrub. He's a solid fighter, right? He's a little bit of a test, especially early in your career. And to go out there and take him down and dominate him, and look, Co's pretty entertaining on the floor. I would love to see him add in a submission game. If he added in a sub game, dude, like a dangerous submission game, this guy would be a dangerous guy to watch in the welterweight division. However, on the feet, man, he's not the biggest guy in this weight class, which I know that Phil Rowe's also very tall and whatnot, but, Seokyoung Ko's got power. He can knock you out. We've seen that he can hurt you on the feet, and then it's really the ground game. He's super strong, man. He can get you down. He can control you, beat you up on the floor with some good ground and pound. If he adds in a submission game, dude, this guy would be a complete problem in this weight class. But the fact that he really depends upon ground and pound, which when you do that, you're allowing guys to create space and even work for submissions off of their back. It creates, opportunities for them to move on bottom. I'm a little worried about the fact that he doesn't have any submission threat whatsoever, right? But for what we've seen, man, he's dangerous on the feet, good ground and pound, completely dominated Phil Rowe, man. Ko's a guy to keep your eye on, man. To go out there and dominate Phil Rowe like that, completely control him, get him down every single time he wanted to take down. Ko is strong. He has excellent, positional awareness. He's very balanced. Very, very, very good fighter, man. But again, not having that submission element, I feel like that might hurt him as he starts to climb the rankings. If he gets towards the top of the weight class, I think that that's something that might hurt him at some point. So I'd like to see him work on much more of a submission game. Because can you imagine with that ground and pound, that control, the power on the feet, and the ability to get guys down basically whenever he wants? Man, if he adds in a sub game, he'd be really dangerous. So that's my only critique with Ko, but from top to bottom, man, his style, given what we're seeing right now, this guy's super good, man. Got to keep your eye on for sure. First fight of the night, Toledo Alencar versus Ariane Carnelossi. I mean, Carnellossi's juice, man. Jacked as can be, right? Super strong, right? I figured on the feet, if she was able to keep the fight there, she could probably have the advantage, right? Because she's big, she's strong. But at the end of the day, I mean, she has some of the worst takedown defense we've honestly ever seen in the UFC, and that's why I picked Alencar to win this fight. And I think I said by decision, but I said I wouldn't be shocked if Alencar gets the submission because we had never seen Ariane finished on the floor before. But again, there's a first for everything, right? So I picked Alencar to win this fight, given the fact that Carnelossi, while she's big and strong, and if it was a bodybuilding competition, she'd be getting the W. She's just not winning if she's getting taken down because she has horrendous takedown defense and on the floor looks like a fish out of water. And brother, she looked like white belt on the floor. She does. She looks horrible on the ground. Doesn't know what she's doing. Got dominated on the ground by Alencar. Again, had some success on the feet, right? But at the end of the day, too big of a gap on the ground. And Carnelossi carrying around all that muscle seemed like she started to slow down. Alencar capitalized. Easy W. For Toledo Alencar. So that was UFC Vegas 110, man. Never an Apex card without some drama, controversy. And, man, we always get some crazy fights on this card. So I know we got another Apex event. I'll have my full card coming out over the next couple days for that. So stay tuned for that. But if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. Let me know what you think down in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you do not miss an upload. I would appreciate it. See you next time.